The antique shop. I ran because there was nothing else to do. The men from the orphanage were half a block behind me, their boots pounding the cobblestones, their voices cutting through the noise of the Lower East Side like knives. Wilhelm Taube! Stop right there, boy! I didn't stop. I hadn't stopped since I slipped out the basement window 3 hours ago, and I wasn't going to stop now. Not for them, not for anyone. My name is Wilhelm Taube, and I was 12 years old in the autumn of 1923. My parents had died of scarlet fever 6 months earlier, taken within days of each other in the cramped tenement on Orchard Street, where I'd spent my whole life. I survived. Sometimes I wished I hadn't. The city sent me to St. Aldrich's Home for Wayward Boys. They called it an orphanage. It was a workhouse. 14 hours a day sorting rags or stitching buttons or scrubbing floors that were never clean enough. And if you slowed down, if you complained, if you looked at the masters wrong, there was the strap or the closet, or worse. I'd seen the worse. I wasn't going to experience it, so I ran. The streets blurred past, pushcarts and tenements and women hanging laundry from fire escapes, the whole teeming chaos of the city that had swallowed my parents and would swallow me too if I let it. I ducked down an alley, vaulted a fence, came out on a street I didn't recognize, and saw the shop. Isinglass Antiques and Consignment. The sign was old, the gold lettering faded, the windows dark. The buildings on either side pressed close, as if trying to squeeze it out of existence. It looked abandoned, it looked forgotten. It looked perfect. I glanced back. The orphanage men were just rounding the corner, scanning the street, their eyes passing over me without recognition. I was just another street kid, just another piece of human debris. They hadn't seen me duck into the alley. I pushed open the door, unlocked somehow, despite the darkness inside, and slipped through. The shop swallowed me whole. That's the only way to describe it. One moment, I was in the noise and light of the city. The next, I was standing in a darkness so complete, it felt solid. The door swung shut behind me, and the sounds of the street vanished as if they'd never been. I stood frozen, waiting for my eyes to adjust. Slowly, shapes emerged from the gloom. Furniture, shelves, display cases filled with objects I couldn't quite make out. The air smelled of dust and old wood, and something else, something sweet and strange, like incense that had been burning for centuries. Light filtered through gaps in the shuttered windows, just enough to navigate by. I crept forward, looking for a place to hide. The wardrobe loomed in the back corner of the shop, massive and dark, carved from wood so old it had nearly gone black. It was the kind of furniture you saw in picture books about kings and castles, ornate, imposing, utterly out of place in a cramped antique shop on the Lower East Side. I pulled open the doors, empty except for the smell of cedar and secrets. I climbed inside, pulled the doors shut behind me, and waited. Hours passed. I heard footsteps outside once, voices muffled by the shop walls, the orphanage men searching the street, but they never came inside, never even tried the door. It was as if the shop didn't want to be found, and the world was happy to oblige. I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling the shape of my father's pocket watch through my shirt. It was all I had left of him, a battered timepiece with a missing chain, its hands frozen at 8:17 since the night he died. Worthless, really, but I'd stolen it from the orphanage director's desk the night I escaped, and I would have killed anyone who tried to take it from me. When darkness fell, real darkness, night darkness, not just the gloom of shuttered windows, I finally climbed out of the wardrobe. The shop was magnificent. Now that I could move freely, I wandered through the aisles, marveling at what I saw. This wasn't a simple antique shop, the kind that sold old chairs and chipped vases to immigrants trying to furnish their tenements on the cheap. This was a museum, a treasury, a graveyard of beautiful things. A writing desk of pale wood inlaid with mother of pearl, the kind of furniture that belonged in a palace. The card beside it read, Queen Anne's Secretaire, circa 1710, provenance unknown. A suit of armor from some medieval battlefield, dented and scarred, the metal gone dark with age. It stood in the corner like a silent guardian, empty helmet staring at nothing. A collection of meerschaum pipes in a glass case, each one carved into an elaborate shape. A sultan's head, a dragon, a mermaid rising from waves of fossilized foam. Jewelry from every era, Georgian mourning brooches woven from human hair, Victorian cameos carved from shell, Art Nouveau pendants dripping with enamel and opal, a necklace of amber beads that looked old enough to have adorned a pharaoh's bride. Furniture that spanned centuries and continents, a Chinese lacquer cabinet painted with dragons and clouds, a Spanish vagueno covered in intricate metalwork, a Dutch cass so tall it nearly touched the ceiling, and scattered among the grand pieces, the humble ones, the things that immigrants had brought from the old country and sold when poverty bit too deep, a hand-carved cuckoo clock from the Black Forest, a set of blue and white Delft tiles, a painted wooden icon to the Virgin, her gold leaf flaking, her eyes full of ancient sorrow. A corn husk doll. I stopped in front of it, puzzled. It sat on a shelf between a jeweled Fabergé egg and a bronze Buddha from Siam, looking utterly out of place. Just a doll made from dried corn husks, the kind farm children made when there was no money for toys. It had no face, just a blank oval where features should have been. Why was it here, among all this treasure? I didn't have time to wonder. My stomach cramped with hunger, reminding me that I hadn't eaten since the thin gruel they'd served for breakfast at St. Aldrich's. I went looking for food. I found it in a back room that might have been an office once. A block of cheese wrapped in cloth, half a loaf of bread, a jug of water that tasted stale but clean. I ate standing up, wandering back into the main room, chewing and swallowing as I looked at the history surrounding me. These objects had stories. I could feel it. They belonged to people once, real people with real lives, who had loved and lost and eventually passed beyond the need for material things. And somehow, impossibly, all of them had ended up here, in a shop on the Lower East Side that no one seemed to know existed. The clock struck midnight. The sound echoed through the shop, deep, resonant, counting out 12 slow beats that seemed to vibrate in my bones. And then the ghosts appeared. I don't know how else to describe it. One moment the shop was empty, the next it was full of people. They materialized like mist taking form, translucent at first, then growing more solid, more real, until they were almost indistinguishable from the living. Almost. I ducked behind a grandfather clock, heart hammering, and watched. At the Queen Anne's Secretaire, a woman sat writing. She was young, beautiful, dressed in a gown that belonged to another century, her powdered hair piled high in elaborate curls. Her hands moved across invisible paper, dipping an invisible quill into invisible ink, her lips moving in silent words that I somehow knew were declarations of love, letters to someone far away, someone who would never receive them. By the meerschaum pipes, a man materialized, weathered face, salt-stained coat, the rolling gait of someone who'd spent more years on the sea than on land. He lifted one of the pipes to his lips and drew deeply, exhaling smoke that curled and vanished like his own fading substance. His eyes were fixed on a horizon only he could see, and I knew without being told that he was remembering voyages beyond imagination, spice islands and strange ports, the deck of a ship that had carried him around the world for the East India Trading Company before he'd grown too old to sail. A soldier stood at attention beside the suit of armor, not a medieval knight, but someone more recent, a Hessian, maybe. his uniform strange and old-fashioned, his face set in the grim resignation of a man who had died far from home. He polished armor that wasn't his, performing duties that had outlasted him by centuries, trapped in a loop of service he couldn't escape. A child sat rocking in an antique cradle, singing a lullaby in a language I didn't understand. Russian, maybe, or Polish. Her voice was sweet and thin, and she held something in her transparent arms that might have been a baby or might have been empty air. Everywhere I looked, more ghosts, dozens of them. An old man reading a Torah scroll by candlelight, a woman in mourning black clutching a daguerreotype of a man in military uniform, a boy my age practicing scales on a violin that made no sound. They didn't see me. They didn't see each other. Each one was trapped in their own movement, their own memory, living and reliving the experiences that had bound them to the objects they loved. And then I saw her. The girl was standing by the corn-husk doll. She wasn't reliving a memory like the others. She was just standing there, watching me. Her eyes were bright and aware, tracking my movements as I peeked out from behind the grandfather clock. She smiled, and then she walked toward me. "You don't have to hide," she said. Her voice was accented, German, I thought. "They won't hurt you. They don't even know you're here." I stepped out slowly, still ready to run. "Who are you?" "My name is Liesel," she curtsied, a gesture so old-fashioned it would have made me laugh if I hadn't been terrified. "Liesel Bachmann. I came to this country in 1842. I've been here ever since." You're a ghost." "Yes." She said it simply, without shame or sorrow. "So are they. All of us, bound to the objects we loved most, the things that held the greatest meaning in our lives." I looked at the other ghosts, at the woman writing letters, at the sailor with his pipe, at the soldier polishing armor. "Why don't they talk to you? Why don't they see each other?" "Because they're not free yet." Liesel sat down on a footstool, tucking her legs beneath her in a way that reminded me she had once been a living child. "When you first arrive, you're trapped in your loop, the memory that mattered most. You live it over and over, every night from midnight until 4, and you can't see anything else, can't hear anything else, just the moment that defined you." "How long does that last?" "It depends. Some break free quickly, a few years, a few decades. They come to peace with their grief or their joy, or whatever it was that held them. And then they can move around, talk to the rest of us, see the world as it is, not just as it was." "And some?" Liesel's eyes went to the woman at the writing desk. "Some never break free. Marguerite has been writing those letters for over 200 years. She loved a man who went to war and never came back. She's still waiting for him to read her words." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn night. "What about you? What was your loop?" Liesel was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was smaller. "I was playing with my doll, the cornhusk doll. My mother made it for me on the ship from Germany. We came here with nothing, my family. My father was a farmer, but there was no land here, no work. We lived in a room smaller than the wardrobe you hid in, all 5 of us." She looked down at her transparent hands. "The winter of 1848 was very cold, and there was no food. My parents gave us what little they had, but it wasn't enough. My brothers died first, then my mother, then me. My father survived, but I think he wished he hadn't." "I'm sorry," I said. It was all I could think to say. "It was a long time ago." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I spent decades in my loop, playing with my doll, pretending everything was all right. And then one day, I just stopped. I looked up, and I saw the others, and I wasn't alone anymore." "Is that why you can talk to me? because you're free. Yes, the free ones can see everything, even the living who wander in. It doesn't happen often, but you're here." She tilted her head, studying me with eyes that had seen too much for someone who looked so young. "Why are you here, Wilhelm Taube? What are you running from?" I told her about my parents, about the fever that had taken them in 3 days flat, their bodies burning, their lungs filling with fluid, their hands reaching for me even as the life left their eyes, about St. Aldrich's and the work and the strap and the worse, about the pocket watch I'd stolen, the only thing I had left of the father who had tucked me into bed every night, the mother who had sung me German lullabies she'd learned from her own mother. Liesel listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached out and took my hand. Her touch was cool, like mist on skin, but it was there, real, present. "You don't have anywhere to go," she said. It wasn't a question. "No. No one will miss you." "No one." She squeezed my hand. "Then stay." The clock showed 3:45, 15 minutes until the ghosts faded, until the shop went silent again, until I was alone with nothing but my hunger and my fear and a world that had no place for orphaned boys who ran away from workhouses. "I want to stay," I said, "but I can't. I'm not dead." Liesel stood, took my hand again, led me through a maze of antiques to a corner of the shop I hadn't explored. The mirror stood there, waiting. It was ancient. That was the only word for it. The frame was carved from some black stone I didn't recognize, polished so smooth it looked wet in the dim light. The glass itself wasn't glass at all, but something darker, something that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Obsidian. I'd heard the word somewhere. Volcanic glass, the kind the Aztecs had used for mirrors and knives. "This was here before everything else," Liesel said. "The man who owns the shop, Mr. Isinglass, he says it was here before the world was new, before there were people to look into it." "Does it have a ghost?" "No, it's not that kind of thing." She let go of my hand. "It's a wishing mirror. If you wish, and your wish is true, truly true with all your heart, it can make things happen." "What kind of things?" "Any kind. Mr. Isinglass used it to stay alive long past his natural years. Some of the ghosts used it to bind themselves here when they might have moved on." She looked at me with those ancient childish eyes. "And if you wanted to stay, if you really wanted to, with everything you are, you could wish for that." I looked at the mirror, at the dark surface that showed nothing, reflected nothing, revealed nothing. I thought about the life waiting for me outside, the streets, the cold, the orphanage men who would find me eventually, who would drag me back to St. Aldrich's and make an example of me, the years of labor stretching ahead, assuming I survived them at all. And I thought about this place, about Liesel and Marguerite and the sailor and the soldier and all the others, about belonging somewhere, about being with people who understood what it meant to be lost. I reached into my shirt and pulled out my father's pocket watch. The hands were frozen at 8:17, the time I realized that he had died, the exact moment his heart had stopped beating, the moment the watch had stopped with him. He was already here. In a way, he'd always been here, waiting for me. I stepped in front of the mirror. "I wish to stay," I said. The obsidian surface rippled. For just a moment, I saw something in its depths, not my reflection, but something else, a place beyond the shop, beyond the city, beyond everything, a place where lost things gathered, where the forgotten were remembered, where the lonely were never alone. And then, the clock struck 4. The shop went silent. The ghosts vanished, Marguerite mid-letter, the sailor mid-puff, the soldier mid-polish. The air felt suddenly heavy, suddenly still, like the held breath of an empty church. No one was there. Nothing moved. But in the display case beside the corn-husk doll, a place that had been empty just hours before, an old pocket watch sat ticking. Its hand showed 4 o'clock. It was keeping perfect time. And if you press your ear to the glass, you could almost hear it. Laughter, faint and far away, a boy and a girl playing among the treasures. Finally home, finally found, forever.